All right, it's trade deadline day. Lots of crazy stuff has happened in the NHL. We have Cody Vonlobstein of Predsmart. He's on the phone right now. He's going to be talking with us. Cody, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. If you guys don't follow him on Twitter, what's your Twitter handle so that everyone can go follow you?
My personal one is just my name, at Cody Vonlobstein, but all my hockey stuff is at Predsmart on Twitter.
Sweet. And he's a great account. Both follows. Go follow him. And we're going to talk about the deadline a little bit. We're going to start out with Jets. Jets and Blues. This trade was the Jets acquired Stastny from the Blues in exchange for a first-round pick in 2018 for Eric Foley and a conditional fourth-round pick in the 2020 draft. What are your thoughts on this? What did you see in this deal?
It seems like the buying prices for a lot of players during this particular trade deadline is high. It's hard to single them out. Like, it's a lot easier to just compare all the trades when you look at the prices. But as far as Stastny goes, they paid a lot for him, and if they can keep him, then I think it was worth it.
Right.
If he ends up leaving because he is an unrestricted free agent after this season, then I think they overpaid. But it's pretty obvious they're all in. I don't know the details of the conditional fourth-round pick, or I don't know much about Eric Foley, but obviously they paid a lot to get him, and hopefully for us it doesn't pan out, but hopefully for them he stays with them, and if he does, it's a good trade.
Definitely. The fourth-round pick is if the Jets, I believe it's the Jets draft top 3, Blues will receive instead the 2019 first-rounder. So that's the conditions on that. But, yeah, so do you think, so Winnipeg was already a scary team. Does this make them, and, in my opinion, this makes that, who is the best team out of the West right now? Because right now you have Vegas. We'll get to them in a minute with Tatar, but you have Vegas, Nashville, and Winnipeg. Who do you think is the scariest after the Stastny trade?
After the Stastny trade, I think that the elite teams in the West are really just the Preds and the Jets, and they both have different strengths and weaknesses. But I think that Stastny gives the Jets the ability to have another level in the playoffs that they didn't have before, and obviously the Predators have that as well, and I don't think Vegas does, and I think that's what separates them even before the trade. But Stastny definitely puts Winnipeg in my top 3 favorites to win the Cup, along with the Predators and Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I think that it's almost like a guaranteed loss, unless something crazy happens to Tampa where they just, for some reason, can't perform in the playoffs. It's almost like you expect to have Nashville and Winnipeg be the ones in the West, which is trash that they're probably going to meet in the second round if they meet, and not the Western Conference Final. The NHL needs to work on their playoff setup, But in saying that, you do expect one of those teams. And you could also have neither of them make it because they'll beat each other up so much in the second round.
Exactly.
Which could be a pain as well. If you look at Eric Foley, he's a prospect that is going to the Blues. When you look at his numbers, they're pretty good. He's
a lot of points.
He's about a point per game, if not a point, more than a point per game player, in all his junior hockey leading up to now, and that's scary as a Preds fan to see that going to the Blues, and then if Stastny stays with the Jets, what's going to stay in the Central?
That's just a lot. That's a lot of points that he's putting up. It's a quality player for the Blues, and it scares the Preds going forward for sure.
Definitely. All right, we're going to move on. Sabres and the Sharks. The Sharks gave the Sabres a conditional 2019 first-rounder and a conditional 2020 fourth-rounder and a prospect center, Dan O'Regan, to the Sabres for Evander Kane. What are your thoughts on this trade? Who wins it, in your opinion?
Whoever gets Evander Kane, in my opinion, is a loser in the trade. Not like a loser as a team-wise, but just in the trade overall. He's already said that he's exploring other options come the postseason this year, so I don't know why you'd pay that much for a rental that you're not going to be able to keep. And then Evander Kane, his personal locker room issues, that aside, I don't understand why you pay that much for for just a rental. But again, the buying prices for this trade deadline are extremely high, and the Sharks are in the hunt. So, in my opinion, not a great deal for the Sharks. If they end up making the playoffs and he's a big impact and returns, then I think it's a good deal for both sides. But I just don't see him returning to San Jose after this season.
I'm with you, and I don't personally. I could gladly play in San Jose. It's a nice area. I think it is expensive to live, so he might have a chance at re-signing, but you never know what he wants. Adam Herman is the beat reporter for the New York Rangers. He pointed out that the Rangers got more for Michael Grabner than the Sabres actually did for Evander Kane, which is sort of mind-boggling because Evander Kane is a better player tremendously than Grabner is, and it kind of shows you a little bit why Buffalo maybe is trash. Some bad management up there. But I'm with you. I think Evander Kane is just too big of a distraction. I would not want him on my team by any means. I've always said he's a little bit too much of the NBA and the NHL.
He's a good player, but his personality makes him tough to trade, and I think that's why they got less out of it. I'm not sure that really goes. I don't think that reflects as much on the GM as it does how difficult it is to trade Evander Kane.
Yeah.
And I feel like if he could keep his mouth shut, he would be a lot easier to trade, and he'd probably make more money. But that's just my opinion.
I'm with you on that. Also, another O'Regan in that deal was a 2012 fifth-round pick. He's played 22 NHL games, has 5 points. Probably not. He's just an AHL player that was tossed in there. All right, moving on really quickly. And this is, we all knew Rick Nash was getting traded. What does Boston? Are they a legitimate contender right now for the Cup, or are they going to get destroyed? What do you see Boston as right now after gaining Rick Nash?
As far as the East goes, I've had Tampa Bay coming out of the East all the way as the team to go to the finals. But as far as the second team that gets into the Eastern Conference Finals, it's been a toss-up for me all year. I think that the Capitals have a chance. They might still have a chance, but I think that their chances drop now with this trade because Boston improves. Obviously,
and there was a chance we saw the Caps were gunning for Carlson.
I was excited for that, but
that would have been intense. But obviously, that didn't go through. But continue on with what you were saying.
I think it makes Boston better. They paid a lot to get him, but obviously he's what they were looking for, right? So high risk, high reward. If they make it to the conference finals, I think they have a chance to do it. I'm not sure that they could upset Tampa Bay if they did make it, but they have a chance to make it, and that's what matters.
Now, I want to kind of talking about Boston and Tampa, I'm with you a little bit on that. Tampa makes this huge, both teams trade with New York, and Tampa makes this huge splash, and they pick up Miller and McDonough, and they send back several players. I think the only player who's actually on the team is Nemistikov, a 2018 first-round pick, and a conditional second-round pick. And then, like, Brett Holden and Liber Hajek also in that deal. The thing that worries me about this trade for Tampa, and I can't believe I'm sitting here saying, like, this worries me for Tampa. They're such a good team. They're already a fantastic team. And I'm worried that adding a guy like McDonough, who is going to be great. I think I saw someone say McDonough is actually going to be on their second pairing, which if you feel confident in Hedman, and I'm not sure who's on who's his other partner, but having him on the second pairing, that's going to be fantastically solid. The thing that you worry about is you look at Stamkos and Kucherov, who are tearing it up right now, and their center was Nemistikov. How much do you think that the impact McDonough and Miller make, do you think it's a big enough impact to take away that unity of Stamkos, Nemistikov, and Kucherov?
I think that Tampa and Boston both gave a lot to get exactly what they wanted.
Okay.
Tampa improves at defense with McDonough, and I think JT Miller and Nemestikov kind of cancel each other out because they're both quality centers, and I think players like Stamkos and Kucherov, I mean, they can make any center quality on that line, right? So JT Miller's a quality player. I think he'll be fine in Tampa. I think McDonough's obviously an upgrade. And they gave a lot, but they got a lot. So Tampa's obviously scary going forward because they added what they wanted, and they keep a quality center. But yeah, I think New York benefits a lot from both of these trades, and I think that Tampa and Boston both gave a lot to get exactly what they wanted. So obviously it's a cup or bust for Tampa, but they got what they wanted. But like everyone in these deals got what they wanted, so it's win-win all around. Obviously, unless they don't win a cup, and then it's a great trade, but it didn't pan out to get the end goal that you wanted. So
right now, do you think Miller slides straight into that first line role, or do you think you see a guy like a Tyler Johnson, Braden Point, one of those guys who knows the team sliding up, or do you just simply replace Nemistikov?
That's something that the coach is probably going to tinker with over the next couple of weeks and figure out who works best. Tyler Johnson, he's a fantastic talent. I remember he was linked to the Predators not that long ago, and I was really excited to hear those rumors. Obviously, they fizzled pretty quickly, but I think that's just something the coach is going to have to figure out. That's because you never know. You can have a guy like Kyle Turris come in and just light it up with players like Fiala and Smith. Or you slide someone up like a Colton Sissons that we did in the Stanley Cup final, and he has instant chemistry, and suddenly he's a 1C instead of a 3 or 4. So it comes down to what the coach thinks works best.
It's a fantastic point. I'm excited to see what Tampa's going to do. They have a fun team, really fun team to watch. Just all around, Vasilevsky all the way up to Cooch or Stammers. All fantastic. Very fun. All right. Now we'll get to our team. Nashville and Chicago. Blackhawks give us Ryan Hartman, and they get back 2 picks, a 2018 first and 4th rounder in addition to Victor Edgel. What do you see going for? Do you think the Preds paid too much for Hartman, or do you think they paid what he was worth?
See, that's a tough thing because for me, looking forward, I like this pick a lot, or this trade a lot. Obviously, you gave up a little bit of your future to get a player, but he's young, he's easily resignable, he's versatile. A lot of fans that I've talked to that are Blackhawks fans said that he was basically their Victor Arvidsson. So obviously, a player like that is a player you want on your team, attitude-wise. And versatility-wise, I've heard him compared to Calle Yarncroke in that he can play center and a wing position. He's exactly what the Predators wanted in depth, scoring for the playoffs. And he's cheap, resignable. Obviously, you give a lot to get him, but you have to give a lot in this trade deadline. Obviously, the prices are steep for every player. So if Poyle wanted to make a move, I'm glad it was this one, and I'm glad he paid what he did. I read that he was a 30th overall pick in 2013, so obviously that's where our first round is going to be, hopefully, in this upcoming draft. So the way I look at that is you just sped up your draft process, and you guaranteed that it's not going to be a bust.
Right.
So that's a win. And you dropped back your 4th-round pick for a 5th-round pick and gave a prospect not named Dante Fabro or Eeli Tolvanen, so that's a win for me.
Yeah, big time. Very true. Very good point on that. Yeah, I'm with you. I think he's going to be fantastic. I went through, and whenever we make a trade, first thing I do is go watch highlights, and see what they're capable of, because that's the highlights. You watch Kyle Turris' highlight tape, and you're like, this guy's capable of a lot. And when you go back and watch Hartman's stuff as well, you see him doing a lot of, like you were saying, Calle Yarncroke stuff, that type of just all around, he's making passes, he's making good plays, he's making a lot of really good things, and I love that. Do you think he affects chemistry in the dressing room at all, or do you think that since we didn't give away anyone, he's just like another body in there who has played in the playoffs and has done stuff before? What do you think that he does with chemistry?
Well, first I'd like to touch on what you said about highlights. I haven't seen many of Brian Hartman's highlights, but as soon as we made the trade, my first thought was, well, I've heard that guy, his name being called in Bridgestone a couple times when they score against us, so obviously it's a player that I've heard of before, and he'll be quality. as far as locker room goes, I can't speak for other teams in the NHL, but I pay close attention, and I feel like I have a good feel for the personality in our locker room.
Yeah.
And a guy that works hard and is gritty like Hartman should fit in well. I feel like we have a group of good guys, good men, good players, all that stuff, and they'll be pretty welcoming to him. I think if Bonino can come into the locker room and fit, then anyone can come into the locker room and fit, because he was on that Pittsburgh Penguins team that ended up beating us in the final. So I don't think that there will be any friction coming forward.
I'm with you on that. Here's the tough part for this trade for me. Who's sitting? Because you're good except for the fact Fisher's back.
Yeah.
And suddenly, and I think it's pretty obvious it's going to be Watson or Hartnell. You're not sitting Callie or Crook. You're not sitting Bonino. Fisher's coming back. Maybe you're not playing him nonstop. But where do you see Hartman fitting into this lineup? Third line guy, fourth line guy. Where is he?
For me, it's a tough call because that Hartnell, Bonino, Yarncroc line has been so productive lately. Yeah. I feel like you kind of have to let them ride that wave out. For me, as tough as a decision it is, I think with Auberg gone, obviously Salamaki's not going to be in with Fisher returning, but I see Hartman playing a third or a fourth line. With the way the Yarncroc, Bonino, Hartnell line is going, I'd say they stay at the 3. And then for the fourth line, I'd slot Hartman in there and put Sissons in the center, and and Watson as the right wing. Honestly, I'm not sure where Fisher fits into this line at this point. I'm not sure because obviously you want Fisher in the locker room, and he's a talented player, and he's a guy you want on the ice for his experience and for his leadership capabilities. But is he going to be more productive than a Colton Sissons as the 4C is my question. I could see Hartnell and Watson interchanging because they're the bruisers and you want to add longevity to their season. Because the longer it goes on, they're the guys who are going to wear down the fastest, being the big hitters. I could see them rotating in and out, but honestly, my biggest question is where does Fisher fit in? Because I think Hartman fits in well.
That's exactly my thing. I love Mike Fisher, and he is one of my favorite players ever. He's brought obviously so much to Nashville, but last year when he retired, I was like, that's a good thing. He needed to retire because we had a lot of players coming in, a lot of young talent that was faster than Mike Fisher, and I'm glad Fisher is back, but I'm with you. Where does he slot it? He doesn't really fit in the lineup. He's a good player, but he's obviously lost something. I mean, he hasn't truly played hockey in a while. I mean, at what point can you send him down to Milwaukee for 2 weeks and have him play with Milwaukee on a conditioning stay? And that's kind of where I think Nashville has to really make the decision is, do you end up hurting your chemistry by playing Fisher? A guy who hasn't played at all, and you make Sissons or Watson or someone like that lose a roster spot, does that hurt team chemistry?
Watson and Sissons and Hartnell, like the whole team right now, like last game, Yossi was the only player who didn't register a shot, but he still had an assist. So, yeah. And the game before that, every player on the Nashville Predators had a shot on goal, and I believe the game before that as well against the Sharks. So, or whoever it was, it slipped my mind now, but everyone's being productive, and I feel like it's tough to bring a new guy in. That's why I'm excited that we didn't lose. I mean, we lost Albert, but he hadn't been in the lineup for a while. We still have our team that we came into the deadline with that we're going out with. So yeah. I feel like Hartman, he's an easy slot in. He's a hardworking, fast guy, like fast young player. He's another Yarncroc. He's another Arvidsson, another player that fits our style of play. I love Fisher. I just don't know where he fits in. Yeah. Everyone's been too productive. It's hard to tell.
That's it. I'm the same way. Quick story about Edberg here. I was in Arizona last time we played out there, and like Arizona, the way it's set up, it's just like a little there's a little shopping center, and then it's like Cardinal Stadium, Gila River Arena, and then like that's it, like a hotel. And so the players are just casually walking around. And Callie and Aberg were out like walking. I think they were going to get a donut, which good like night before a game snack a donut. And we smiled like in our Preds shirts. We're like, hey man, and this is when Pontus was alone, and he just like glared at us, put his head down, and kept walking. And I was like, okay, done with you. And so when he got traded, I mean, I liked him as a player, but and I'm sure he might have been having a rough day. But as soon as we were like, okay, like you were rude to us, so. But anyways, we can move on. That's going to be interesting to see how the Preds dressing room plays out. And that whole thing. All right, Detroit and Vegas, they made a trade. Detroit got a first, a second, and a third-round pick for Thomas Tatar. What are your thoughts on this trade? I know Nashville looked at Tatar for a while. Is this Vegas? It's crazy that an expansion team just bought before. That doesn't make sense in the first place. Do you see this assisting them in a run, or do you think it's just like you were talking about before, they're not for real, and they'll just die out in the playoffs?
It's hard to tell with Vegas. I don't think that even with adding Tatar, which they paid a lot to get for him, obviously that means that they're going to continue building going forward, and they feel like they have a window at this point in time. So they're not going to be sellers anytime soon if they're buying players with this amount of picks. That's my first take on this. But Vegas, they have a lot of young talent, and they've been playing hard and fast hockey all season. The problem I see with that is that I think that maybe not that they've peaked necessarily and that they're going to come down, but I feel like that they've played their best hockey that they're going to play this year. I'm not sure that they have the experience or the capability to hit that next level in the playoffs that other teams do. I mean, you saw it immediately last year. As soon as the playoffs came, the Predators in Game 1 against the Blackhawks, they were a completely different team, and they played at a different speed with a different level of intensity. And there's nothing like playoff hockey, and that statement has never been truer. I don't think that Vegas is going to have that. I feel like they could get through the first, maybe even the second round based off skill alone.
Yeah.
But as far as beating a team like Winnipeg or Nashville goes, I don't think that they have a chance in either of those series.
And right now, the way it's slotted, they would have Calgary in the first round. I think that's an easy win for them, especially with their T-Mobile Arena is wild, absolutely insane. So they can win, and their home record is fantastic, 24-5-2. I think once you do get to that second round, and they have to play teams who have been there, like San Jose or Anaheim or even Los Angeles. If, depending on who can get in, is it going to be one of those things, and they might even have LA in the first round, which would be tough for them. I think once you get to that playoff experience, I think it really is a thing. You don't see Nashville making a splash until we have playoff experience. And I think that Vegas, I think you're right. I think that Tatar is going to be a good pickup for them, especially, is he a restricted free agent, or do you know what he is going into this year? I can pull it up real quick.
I believe he's restricted, but I don't know for sure.
It looks like he is. He is not. He is signed for 5.3 through 2021, and so he'll be there long term. And you never know. You never know what they can do if they can get Neal re-signed. Flower. If you have Flower through 18-19. If Subban is a good goalie for them, you could see Vegas making a splash in the future. But they've got to get players re-signed, and so that's where they are. All right. And wrap up. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add in? Anything else that you'd like to say based on today's deadline or going forward in the playoffs? Anything like that?
Yeah, I don't think you're taking Calgary seriously enough in that Vegas series. I know T-Mobile Arena is a tough place to play, but I think Calgary is a very talented, fast team, and in the playoffs, that's scary.
Okay.
They didn't have a good playoffs last year against the Ducks, but obviously the Ducks were on a mission last year, and I think Calgary has something to prove this year, and Vegas is the perfect team to prove it against. And they match them every bit with their speed and intensity, so I think that would be a good series. Yeah, I think Calgary would be a dark horse in that aspect. But again, I don't think anybody but Winnipeg or Nashville is coming out of the West.
Okay, cool. Do you think LA could get hot and make a run? They're sitting at 71 points right now, with 2 games in hand on Anaheim, which personally I would love to see a Ducks LA playoff series. But just could LA get hot and make a run, or do you think that they are out of it?
I think in the West, I think the third place in the Central is up for grabs.
Okay.
And I think from the second and third places in the Pacific are up for grabs, and both wild card spots are up for grabs. I think the last time I checked, with the games in hand, there was a 5-point difference, I believe, between San Jose and the Avalanche. So if you look, not to say the Avalanche would take that spot, but the Avalanche are the last team, in my opinion, that could make a playoff spot run, and they could become the 8th seed.
They're currently
you never know.
They're 4 points out with 2 games in hand on Calgary. Colorado is so, but they also have to leapfrog LA and St. Louis in order to get there. But it's capable. I mean, how crazy would that be for the Avs to make the playoffs after last year?
It's possible for San Jose to drop out and LA take that second spot. The Ducks take the third spot. Calgary could be the wild card 1. The Avalanche could be the wild card 2, and the Blues could very well not be in the playoffs. That's very much a reality with the way they're playing right now. If they don't get it together soon, they will be overtaken because the West is very competitive, and there's a lot of teams playing really good hockey out there right now.
Very good point. All right, I want your 2 teams out of the West, 2 teams out of the East, and then your Stanley Cup final prediction. If you want to give it, if you just want to give the 2 teams who you think it's going to be, that's okay too.
I think that out of the West it's gonna be the Jets or the Predators. I don't think any other team, this is completely unbiased. Also, I don't think any other team has the roster that they do. I think the Jets have one of the best top 9 in the league, if not the best. I think the Predators have them on defense, and I think that when they do come into the series, I think that the biggest players to watch would be Subban and Ekholm. That shutdown D pairing last year against Taves Kane, against Tarasenko, against Jaden Schwartz, they locked down against Corey Perry and Ryan Getzlaf. Even Crosby was very unproductive in the finals. That pairing is incredible when it comes to shutting down top lines. So I feel like Line A in that line could be a non-factor in the playoffs just because of Subban and Ekholm shutting them down. So I think that'll be a good series, and whoever wins that series would go to the final out of the West, barring injury. Obviously, if the Predators win and lose most of their best players, obviously they're going to have problems in the conference final. But yeah, I think I take the Predators in that matchup just because defense wins championships. And that's true. I think that Pecorine is a much better goalie than Connor Hellebuyck, and just like Jake Allen, he's bound to come down to earth sometime. But that's just my opinion on the West. As far as the East goes, I think you have to put Tampa Bay in the conference final. I think they have the best top to bottom roster right now in the NHL. They have depth, top 3 lines. Their top 9 forwards are amazing. They now have a top 4 D that's the only one really comparable to Nashville's. Adding McDonough, Vasilevsky has been fantastic in goal all year. I think that's an easy lock-up for the Eastern Conference Finals and probably even the Stanley Cup Final. And then the other team that could go in that's a tough pick. I think with Brassard, the Penguins have made a big move, but I also don't have faith in Murray to make it that far, as bad as that sounds. A goalie that's gotten a non-contact injury before, I feel like is prone to get them again. I think even today he left practice early for a supposed injury, so we'll see. But I don't think that Murray is capable of making a full run. He's not had to do it yet, so he might have to get a real playoff experience, a real full season experience before he's able to make that run from start to finish. I think Boston could do it. Boston could get to the